Hello everyone, welcome back to my project box. Today I'd like to talk about connecting a Sonoff Mini, like this one, to my combi boiler. And I want to use this to wirelessly turn my combi boiler on and off. And then I want to use a NS panel to control this. So this connects to that, and that talks to this. This will act as my wireless thermostat, and also will double up as a 2-gang light switch. So it will replace a 2-gang light switch somewhere on the wall. So it won't need batteries, it will be permanently powered, which is quite handy. So I'd like to discuss how this would connect to the boiler and possible difficulties you might have with your boiler, because you might need volt-free contacts. Luckily, my boiler can work directly with this. It can take a live supply to call for heating. So this can directly turn the boiler on, no problem, and I'll show you how that's done. So my current thermostat is this Hive system, and this is the receiver unit for the Hive, and then I have the wireless thermostat that's battery operated, sitting on the wall somewhere else in the house. And the boiler controls is currently already wired into this Hive receiver, so I'm not going to open the boiler up so that our little Sonoff with fresh wires connect into the boiler. That's not necessary, because the wires have already been brought out to there, so we can just go connect this straight to where this little box is on the wall. If we take that off, there's a little terminal block inside. We can connect all the wires we need. We've got our live and neutral supply, and then you have LR, I believe, which is a switched live, which this can provide, a switch live output, and that will then turn the boiler on to start heating the house. Now, a lot of boilers, or there are some boilers that require volt-free contacts, but it's quite common in the UK to actually do it with a live switch live supply like this. So it's quite handy, because this is not volt-free. And I just like to warn you that if your boiler requires a volt-free relay, don't use this, because it could possibly damage your boiler. But my boiler is fine. It requires a switched live, so this will work perfectly for that. So let's see if we could wire that in. I think what we'll do, we'll run another flex into there, connect it to the terminals, leave that in place, and just put a little box at the bottom and put this inside with a flex running into it. We only need 3 cores: live, neutral, and switch live out to control the boiler. So let's get onto that. Now, we could go open up the boiler, remove the cover, and then this panel drops down and we can get to the control terminals inside and run a 3-core flex to our Sonoff Mini and connect it up. But I think that's way too much trouble. I don't really need to do that. The flex is already there. It would have also been possible to just use the existing flex that goes directly from the boiler to the old thermostat and wire that directly into the Sonoff Mini, but I've chosen to not do that. We have our old Hive thermostat there. I've also turned off the power, and I've loosened the screws, and this just pops off to reveal a sort of terminal connection block here, which is quite convenient, because now I've wired it up the same sort of colors we need, which is our blue for neutral, our brown for live in supply for the Sonoff to supply it, and of course that switches the live back out to the black wire, which is this wire here we're interested in. That's the control signal that turns the boiler on. And of course, if you were to just bridge that live and the black together, the boiler would come on. So it kind of calls for heat as soon as you make that one live. And this, luckily on this boiler, it doesn't have to be a volt-free connection. You can just put live straight on that, and it brings the boiler on, which is great. Which means we can use this Sonoff Mini, and we don't need a special volt-free wireless relay to do that, which I know you need for some boilers. So be aware of that, because you could damage something if you put mains voltage on a volt-free contact. But luckily for us, we don't need it. We can this can switch our live supply straight onto there. So all we have to do is plumb these wires straight into there. I might put a little box there on the wall to house this so it's not exposed. A little buttress box. So let's get cracking with that. Right, so we have a little Sonoff sitting in its little buttress back box. So now all we need to do is give it a live and neutral supply. That was the neutral, now the live. And now it's the control signal, which is a switched live. Just be aware of that with your boiler. And that's it. So let's turn the power on and see if our Sonoff Mini fires up, because it's getting its power from the boiler now. It's very handy, this little junction box here. And I think we can safely leave our existing wireless thermostat in place, and we just will disable it and not use it. That way we have a backup system. If this for some reason fails, I can just this will work in parallel, but we just won't have it active. So then we could just not have this turn on and our hive can override it. That way we have a nice backup. So let's turn the power back on and see what happens. Right, now it's time to see if our NSPanel will talk to the Sonoff Mini over there. So what I've done is I've just temporarily run a live and neutral supply on this little flex onto a plug. So we'll just power it up. We'll just power it up, turn the power on, and see if this boots up. So we're seeing it start up now. And this has already been set up, and I might add later to the video how I set these two items up to work together. Right, so that works now. Got a nice little cat there. So let's see if we can, there we go. We have the thermostat. So if it's now set to 10 degrees, if I raise the temperature to say something like 20 something degrees, should now call the, yep. And our Sonoff Mini's got a little blue light on it. And the boiler is doing its thing. You can hear it firing up. Great, so we know that works. So be aware that this is live at the moment. So we just had it open for testing, but obviously we can't stick our fingers in there because it's live. So I've turned the power back off again, so we can put the existing thermostat receiver back in place. And now we can put a cover on the Sonoff. It would be nice to have a little indicator LED or light on there to show you that it's on. So I might still do that. But for now it's fine to be inside the box. The boiler's got a little light on it so we can see if the boiler runs. Line the screws up nicely. So there we go. We have the cover back on. So our Sonoff Mini is safely tucked away inside this little box. And we have our existing Hive wireless thermostat. The old thermostat is also been put back. It is active, it is on, but it's been disabled. So it's not going to call for heating. So it can just sit there as a backup doing nothing. And if this ever were to fail, we could just go back to using that again. So it's a nice backup to have. So let's test it again with our temporarily wired in NSPanel. So now if we drag the thermostat up to say 26 degrees, which is above the room temperature, you hear the clicking noise and the boiler is firing right up. And that's the little symbol in the corner showing it's calling for heating, so the heating is on. Central heating is now active. So that works great. So now all we need to do is install this into our 2-gang light switch, remove the old light switch and mount this back up. So you have 2 separate live supplies here. One coming into this switch and one coming into this switch from their separate ceiling roses. And because it's twin and earth, one wire is blue and it has to be sleeved in brown to indicate that it's now a live, or a switch live in this case. That way you can get away with using you know, a blue and a brown wire together as long as you sleeve it brown. But this is might be a typical setup. It could be wired completely differently in your house. It could be done in a multi-core cable. This is 2 separate twin and earth circuits coming to 2 separate switches. And then you just have the earth bridged together. So let's see if we can fit this little boy. If we can connect these terminals to that. So this is our one light, and that's the other light. This is our live supply, and it's the switch live out. So these two can effectively join together because they're on the same circuit breaker. Or we can just use one of them, but we'll just join them together. And then these two turn one light on, these two turn the other light on. Now, in order to power this device, it does require a neutral connection. And that's okay if you've got one behind the switch. Now, unfortunately, in the UK, it's not that common to have a neutral behind the light switch. I think it's becoming more common nowadays to do that, to bring the neutral down. But in my case, I think it'd be better if I pull a neutral down because it's a stud wall. It's not that difficult to pull a wire down. Maybe pull it with one of these existing cables, just use that to pull a wire down. And then we can have a neutral connection down here. So we'll get that neutral behind the light switch. But if we don't have that option available to us, we can use my no neutral adapter. That creates a virtual neutral. And then that way we don't need to bring a neutral down. It kind of sends it down the switch, one of the switch lives. So basically this shares the live and neutral with my little circuit here. I will demonstrate that a little bit later, but for now I think we'll just go with the proper neutral option. I can demonstrate the no neutral option later on. So with much difficulty I managed to fish a neutral down, and I've protected it with some of this glass fiber braided sleeving. You could probably use a 2-core flex cable and just not use one of the cores. But I just pulled a single cord down and put some protective sleeving over it. I would highly recommend you do that so that the cable isn't on its own without some extra protection. So obviously these two separate, so you can safely work and do the connections without this getting damaged. So now let's terminate all the wires onto here. So let's first do our neutral. Because that was our problem wire. Luckily we have a neutral now. And now we have a live for this light circuit and a live for this light circuit on this side. And we can safely put them together because they're on the same circuit breaker. So what we'll do, we'll pop them both in the same hole. So both our lives are in the live in supply, and now we can have the first lighting circuit in L1. That's the relay output 1, channel 1. And then our second lighting circuit goes in there. and their two live supplies go together. So that's how two live supplies going together. That's it. It should now be fully functional. I recommend you have quite a deep back box. It's a bit crowded in here, but I think we'll manage. Just about. And then you can put your screws in. And now this simply clips onto there. Bear in mind, once it's clipped on, it's quite difficult to remove. I made a little tool that hooks behind there and unclips it. I'll demonstrate that later if you need to take it off again. There we go. Now we can turn the power on. And she's booting up. Great. And our two switches work. Hooray! Everything works as it should. That's fantastic. Now I know it's not always possible to pull a new neutral wire to the back of your light switch if you don't have one available. You might have to chase the wall out, and it's just not viable to do it. So for that I have my no neutral circuit option. And it works by using diodes to steer half of the sine wave of the neutral current back to the NS panel so it can power it via the neutral. And the output relay of the NS panel is then steered back via another set of diodes to send the other half of the sine wave through the same switch live wire back to your LED load. So now the switch live wire can both provide the neutral to the NS panel, and the NS panel can also switch on the LED light bulb through the same wire. I also added some capacitors to help smooth out the ripply waveform so that the LED light bulb doesn't flicker and the NS panel gets a smooth power supply. Only the first output channel of the NS panel gets the bypass circuit. The other channel connects to its light bulb as normal. So let's start by wiring up the first module to the NS panel behind the light switch box. So we'll start by taking our blue module, which is our virtual neutral module, and we'll wire in the white wire, which is our switch live from our first lighting circuit. And then we'll connect all the live supplies together because they're on the same circuit breaker and they're from the same lighting circuits. And we'll connect that to our live supply to the module. Making sure everything fits in there nicely. You need quite a deep back box for this. Now we'll wire in our virtual neutral created by the module into the neutral in terminal, and our live supply in as well that comes from the module. And this is our switch live out of the first channel for our first lighting circuit. And then our second lighting circuit just wires normally to the second output channel. There's no bypass module on that. And that's it, it's wired in. Now we simply screw the screws back in. And our display panel plugs in and just clips in place. Nice and simple, very elegant. So now it's time to connect my bypass module to the ceiling light, which in my case is a pendant. It's a British ceiling rose style pendant with the 3-plate connection. But it's very simple to connect this here because all we really want to do is sit this in line. So it's basically sitting in on this flex. So all we need to do is we need to disconnect the neutral and switch live wires and then just put this in the one end. So give it a neutral and the switch live out. So we'll do that. Put the neutral in. Now we need a connector block for the lamp flex to connect to the module. And now simply connect the lamp in line. So as you can see, this just connects where the lamp used to be connected, and the lamp now connects to on the other side, on the output of it. So it's fairly simple, it just goes in line, that's it. And this is your bypasses the neutral back down through the switch live wire. Now it might be possible to put this into there. It's a bit cramped, but it might be possible. Yeah, it might be possible, but if not, you can always put one of these bigger covers on, like they use in Europe. This should just go right over the top of this, and the flex will come out the top. The other option is to have this sit above the ceiling. It's quite small. The wires can be shorted, and there's various things that can be done. Now it's very important that if you have more than one light connected to a single switch, that the bypass goes to the feed that feeds the very first light in that chain. So it is possible to use my bypass circuit on multiple downlighters connected in a chain like this. So what you need to do is you need to connect your bypass at the start where the lights get fed. So all these lights get fed from this supply, from the switch live and neutral supply. So it needs to sort of go in line with this. So what we'll do is we'll take the supply to the chain where it starts at the first light of the chain. See, this feeds the chain of lights, multiple lights. So we'll put our neutral in there, and then the live out or positive out, and our neutral at the input, the neutral input, and the switch live. And there we go. It just simply goes in line like that. Bear in mind you have to connect both of these units, the bypass at the up by the lights, and the virtual neutral unit by the light switch. So they both have to be connected before you restore the power. You can't just connect one and do a test by turning the power on. Something will pop. You'll have a short circuit. Now, to show these lights working, we'll connect the NS panel to the light switch side of this circuit, and we connect the neutral module in between. We disconnect our light switch, so we have our live supply and our switch live out from the light switch. We take our no neutral adapter, and our switch live goes to SL wire, and our live supply goes in there into live supply. And now our NS panel can connect to the remaining wires. Now I'm just demonstrating this with one of the lighting circuits, the one that does the neutral bypass. The other lighting circuit, L2, can just be normal. So only one of the lighting circuits has the bypass on it, which supplies the virtual neutral to our NS panel. So to wire the NS panel is now quite simple. You just follow the labels. So it's neutral in, and then live in, and then obviously one of our channels we were using for the bypass, which is L1. Would normally be L1, I would suggest. You have to connect the bypass to the same lighting circuit as you connect the virtual neutral adapter to. And both these have to be connected before the power is restored. If you leave this out and try and wire it up without it, you will have a short circuit. The same thing here. If you leave this one out and connect this one and restore the power, You have to have both in place before you restore the power. Right, so that's it. It's now wired up. So there's no neutral connection here. It's basically sending the neutral virtually down back to here now. So in theory, that should now work. So let's turn the power on and see what happens. And as you can see, our Sonoff fires up. Now we'll only have one switch that works because the other channel is not connected, but it's the channel that does the no neutral bypass. As you can see, all our downlighters light up. The other channel will work, but there's no lights connected to it. But on that channel we just connect our lighting circuit as normal, so nothing strange there, just a normal way you connect a light switch. No bypass needed for that one. So it works perfectly. So I'm glad you guys could join me in this little fun project of installing the NSPanel into a double gang light switch and to get it working with my boiler using a Sonoff Mini. If you're interested in these experimental no neutral modules, I might put a link in the description if I decide to make them available. I don't have much spare time to manufacture these things, but you can try and make them yourself. I might make a future video where I describe in depth which components I use and their values and so forth. So please let me know in the comments if this is something that you would like to see. So in a future video, I really would like to look at the NSPanel Pro and if it's possible for it to replace an existing light switch. Now it doesn't have dedicated buttons like the normal NSPanel, and it doesn't have output relays, so it's not really a light switch as such. But I'm sure we can make it work with the existing light switch wires and maybe a smart bulb. And we'll see if we can throw in a no neutral option as well. I'll also provide a link in the description where you guys can get these Sonoff products to try. If you use my coupon code, then you'll get a 10% discount for good measure. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.
You are watching my project box. Smash that like and subscribe button.